Welcome to the Consistent 24, where we turn habits into success and talents into profits. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome. We are diving into The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Oh, such a good one, a classic.
Yeah, if you haven't gotten around to reading it, don't worry. We're basically going to give you the VIP tour hitting those big aha moments.
It's like we cracked it open with you, pulled out the good stuff. And you know what really struck me? How Ries kind of explodes that whole image of the entrepreneur we're all used to.
Right, like Silicon Valley, hoodies, coding all night. It's way bigger than that.
Exactly. It's not just about some lone genius in a garage. He uses this great story, right, about Mark. High-level manager, huge company, not exactly a startup poster child.
But Mark uses these principles to shake things up from within, kind of like an entrepreneur. So it's really about applying this entrepreneurial mindset anywhere.
Yeah, it's a management skill, not just about having a brilliant idea, And one of the coolest things, I think, is this whole idea of treating startups as experiments.
Oh, yeah, the validated learning thing. Right?
Exactly. Every new business is basically a big question mark, and you've got to test those assumptions about what customers will actually pay for.
Which is where the IMVU example comes in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're huge now, but they started out so rough.
But that's the point. They were okay with not being perfect out of the gate. They launched what Ries calls a minimum viable product, an MVP, just enough to get it in front of people and learn.
See, when I hear minimum viable, I think, okay, so launch something kind of terrible on purpose. How does that even work?
It's not about aiming for terrible. It's more like essential. What's the bare minimum you need to test your big idea? Look at Groupon. They started with a blog and PDFs.
Wow, talk about scrappy.
Exactly. They could have waited for a fancy platform, but that's scrappiness. That got them learning faster.
And sometimes those early assumptions are just plain wrong. Remember when IMVU figured people would want to hang out with their real-life friends in their virtual world?
And then, bam, they find out it's all about making new connections. That's the magic of validated learning. You have to be ready to be wrong.
Totally. So how do you even measure progress if you're constantly experimenting? It's not your typical bottom line, right?
Right. That's where innovation accounting comes in. It's about finding the metrics that really matter.
Like with Grocket, they were swimming in data, but it wasn't the right data, was it?
No. Total users. Questions answered. It didn't actually show if they were building a product people loved. Classic vanity metrics.
Ugh, the worst.
The Lean Startup says focus on what shows customer engagement, how they're behaving. Data isn't just for tracking, it's for guiding your next move.
And that data, sometimes it kind of hits you over the head, right? Time for big change.
Is that the pivot or persevere thing?
Exactly. One of the toughest calls for any startup, right? Stick with it or change course. And Ries gives you a framework for figuring it out. Data over gut feeling, which is hard.
For sure. That Vodazin story is a good example. The voter platform. They pivoted a bunch. Testing, tweaking, always adapting.
It shows you pivoting. It's not waving the white flag. It's being brave enough to say, okay, what are customers actually telling us? Gotta find that engine that's gonna make it all work long term. And the Lean Startup, it talks about three main ones, right? Sticky, viral, and paid. It's like what powers your rocket.
Exactly. Each one works differently, needs a different approach. Think about viral growth. It's all about that word of mouth spreading like wildfire.
Like Hotmail. Way back when, they just blew up, and it was that little line at the bottom of every email, get your free email.
Every new user, basically a walking billboard. But it's not luck, right? It's about building something people actually want to share.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if your thing isn't naturally shareable? Like some things just aren't, right? That's where those other engines come in.
You got it. Sticky growth is about holding on to those customers, making your product so good they don't even think about leaving. The apps you use every day, the tools you rely on that's sticky.
Yeah, they become part of your life. And then there's paid growth, which seems more, strategic, like putting money behind it to get customers.
Exactly. It's knowing how much a customer is worth to you over their lifetime, and then being smart about those marketing dollars. Ries uses that example, the collaboration software company.
Oh yeah, they started targeting individuals, but then
They realized, wait, our sweet spot is big companies. Totally different ballgame. Needed a sales team, custom stuff, the whole shebang.
it's crazy how choosing the right engine, even knowing when to switch it up, it can make or break you.
The Lean Startup is big on focus. Don't try to do all the engines at once. Figure out which one fits your product, where you're at right now.
It's about testing, learning as you go. Okay, but even with the perfect engine, what about when your company grows up? Like, how do you keep that scrappy energy?
That is the million-dollar question. Because as you scale, it's easy to get bogged down in process, right? Less freedom to experiment.
So how do you fight that? Keep that startup spirit alive.
The lean startup says you got to decentralize. Give teams the power to try stuff, even if it's risky.
He talks about those sandboxes, right? Little areas where you can experiment without breaking the whole thing.
Exactly. It's got to be okay to fail, as long as you're learning from it.
Yeah.
Like Intuit, they encourage tons of experiments, especially during tax season, which, I mean, that's brave.
It's like you're constantly evolving, right? Can't just rest on your laurels.
Ries talks about borrowing from lean manufacturing. It's this idea of small batches.
Oh, interesting. So instead of launching some huge thing all at once,
To break it down. Smaller chunks, easier to manage.
makes sense. Less risk if something goes wrong, too.
Exactly. And you get feedback quicker. Can course correct before it's too late. It's all about being agile.
Which I guess plays into that hypothesis pull thing. Like, let the learning drive the process.
100%.
Yeah.
What do you need to find out?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the smallest experiment you can run to learn that? Ries uses that alphabet energy example. They were developing that waste heat technology.
Oh, yeah. Such a cool idea. But so many unknowns, right? Like, how do you even start?
They could have tried to build a whole power plant right off the bat, but instead,
They're like, let's make these little units we can test out.
exactly, test different environments, see what works, lower risk, tons of learning.
So smart. And it feels like that whole mindset, that always be learning thing, that's the core of it all, isn't it? The lean startup.
It's bigger than just business, you know? It's like, how do we approach any problem with that same curiosity?
Because the alternative is, well, you put all your eggs in one basket and then,
It's the wrong basket. You've
Yeah.
built a beautiful product that nobody wants.
ouch. So it's a call to action, right?
Yeah.
Be more intentional, more willing to experiment. Don't be afraid to be wrong.
Exactly. In a world that changes this fast, the biggest risk is not taking any risks.
I love that. So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, I think there's something in here for everyone. It's about that balance, you know, passion, but also being practical.
The lean startup gives you the tools to navigate that uncertainty, to turn those big ideas into something real.
And sometimes that journey, that's the most exciting part. Well, there you have it, the lean startup, boiled down to its essence. We hope this has sparked some ideas and maybe even inspired you to go out there and test some of your own assumptions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Consistent 24. If you found value, subscribe and leave a review. Remember to check the synopsis for more free ways to unlock your potential and build profits. The Consistent 24, just listen to learn.